our shadows are uncomfortable. So if it's uncomfortable, then it's working. If it's uncomfortable, then it's exactly where you need to be. And it's okay. Because once you get through that, once you really sit with that shadow, our emotions don't have to be a threat. That's what you learn when you face your shadows.
Put up your mask, let down your guard, and let's talk about the real real. This is the Bring Your Own Mask podcast. All right, everyone. I'm so excited because my guest today is Jenna. Jenna is an intuitive psychic and medium. She is a modern mystic, writer, and host of the Spark Intention podcast. Not only is she certified as a stress coach, she's also a meditation and mindfulness teacher. She has this embodiment of knowledge and foundation of really creating content for people. And I'm really excited to bring her on the show because she's going to talk about really sacred work as well as living life in deeper levels in terms of wealth and prosperity. Welcome to the show, Jenna. I'm so excited that you're here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so stoked to be here.
All right. So Jenna, I was looking over your Instagram and I realized that you use the word modern mystic a lot. Can you tell our listeners that are listening on the show, what is a modern mystic?
Totally. Yeah. So long story short, when I think of a mystic, it's kind of combining science and spirituality, basically really trying to seek truth. And I think often the ancient practitioners of meditation, mindfulness, technically I would consider them a mystic, right? But bringing that into the modern world. So what does that mean? Like we're dealing with so much stress, anxiety, and all of these modern things, like adulting, right? Starting your own business, all of those things. So bringing that practicality and mystical elements into our everyday life through classes, services, products. I kind of just do it all. So That's what a modern mystic is to me. Somebody who's seeking truth, but has a very practical mind and is still drawn to the mystic.
I love that so much because recently I actually went to a psychic. This was several months ago. And she said something to me. She said, "Oh, Kristen, you need to tap into your inner witch." And then right when she said that, I felt kind of like weird. And I realized it was because a lot of conditioning in society where witches are quote unquote bad or like being a mystic is like bad. And so I just would love your input on how we can change the way we look at these terms.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of what that mystical element is, right? Is questioning all of the terminology that we use and really discerning for ourselves. Does it resonate? Does it fit with me? A witch might fit for some people, and it really might. That is a spiritual practice in and of itself. And not all witches are pagan. Not all pagans are, well, all pagans are typically witches, but might not be. It's really an identifier, right? So as far as a mystic and a witch goes, it's educating yourself on the history, decolonizing practices. That's where you start. And then you start to really discern and see for yourself and go, okay, well, a lot of these witchy practices are really just self-care practices. And I think that's why witch has become such a thing, right? Because it's that mystic in you. A witch is also feminist at this point, right? So it can be a signifier of a feminist. So there's a lot there to unpack. And I think it starts with curiosity and then following the history. And that's part of what I do in my classes is to teach people, okay, well, spring equinox, where did the Easter bunny start from? Well, it actually started from Astara. So, we start to go into those historical practices, and that's part of the sacred work is really bringing back history of what it really was and seeing that it's not all that mystical. It's like actually pretty like practical. They just follow the wheel of the year, right? And then the mystic element to it makes it fun and exciting.
Yeah, I love that. So you know what, actually, Jenna, I really want to dive deeper with you. So why don't we put down our guard, put up our mask, and let's talk about the real real. So I know that you said that you brought honey, right?
Yes, I brought raw honey.
I've never put raw honey on my face. So talk to us about that.
Yes, it feels so good. Okay, so this is not my wheelhouse. I get my eyebrows done. It's like my thing. My friend John is an esthetician and he's like, put raw honey on your face. It's really hydrating. It's really good for your skin. I have super sensitive skin too. So anything that's like raw and natural is going to be better for me personally, for my skin. And it's, oh my God, it feels so good. It's really sticky, obviously, but like if you get it like on your mouth, it's sweet. So that's good.
I love that. And have you noticed anything different with your face after using the raw honey?
Yeah. So my skin typically is very glowy afterwards and it feels really hydrated. I have pretty dry skin. So it just feels like I have a new layer of skin on.
I love
It's
that.
like baby soft. It's really nice.
And we all want to look glowy, right? So for everyone
Right.
that's listening, definitely try out raw honey. I mean, I'm sure it's even less expensive too, right? If to find raw honey, it's more natural. Who knows? I'm going to try it next. So,
Oh my gosh, please let me know how you like it. It's great. I usually put it on before a shower, like
okay.
10 minutes before my shower, and then I just like take it off in the shower, but it's kind of like my Sunday practice to like put raw honey on. And then also it is cheaper. I think this was like $8 for like the whole jar.
Nice. Awesome. All right. So let's talk about how you got into modern mysticism. I know that you're also a psychic, you're also a medium. There's a lot of things that you're doing, but I'm really curious what your story is. Like, how did you even end up doing this to begin with?
Oh my gosh. If somebody told me I would like even use a label like psychic or medium like a year ago, I would have laughed in their face. So I grew up Catholic. So there's a lot of deconditioning that had to happen just even on that front. But we're all psychic. We can all be mediums. Many of the times we just disregard what we're actually channeling or what we're actually getting. So just setting that precedence first as I explain this. But it all started with my anxiety journey. And I just wanted to feel better. And so I started my meditation practice. And most people will tell you once they start this work, once you start to get into your meditation practice, your intuition starts to come through. It's just a natural part of it. And our intuition is part of our psychic abilities. Our psychic abilities are really just heightened senses. So clear seeing, clear smelling, tasting, hearing, feeling in the body. And as you start to get attuned to yourself and as you start to use your senses in the present moment, in the here and now, you start to receive more information. And so that's where that started. I just wanted to stop having panic attacks. And then I was like, oh, wait, there's more to this. There's a emotional part of me that needs to heal because my thoughts were creating chemical responses in my body that were telling me I wasn't safe. That was then causing my anxiety. So I had to heal that. In order to heal my thoughts, I had to go into my emotions. And then from my emotions, I created emotional resilience by really sitting with those shadows and facing those thoughts that aren't fun, the uncomfortability, the shame, the guilt, and then moving into ancestor work as well is where the mediumship really started to take form and take shape. And I was so scared of that. I never wanted anything to do with that. But then I ended up taking a mediumship class one-on-one with Emily Green. She's Emily the Medium on Instagram. And I was like, look, I think this is going to come through at some point in my life. I don't want to be afraid. I want to know how to handle it. I want to know how to really just keep this in control. Like I am in control of this. And so then I started to work one-on-one with people in that class, people I didn't know. She'd just bring them on. And I saw how healing it was for people and amazing. She was like, how do you feel? I was like, I can't believe I did that. I really can't believe I did that. But it was so healing. So that's why I added it into my work because grief is a huge part of typically what I work with people. So
everything that you just said reminds me so much of how powerful our world is going towards, right? Again, there's no judgment, but most people, when they have anxiety, is that they would take a pill or they would, see a doctor. And again, if you're going through that, that's totally your journey. But I'm curious as to what made you feel like going deeper ancestral work, because it's scary, right? It's scary.
Yeah.
Something not a lot of people are willing to do. Like, what made you decide to do that?
Couple of things. I was introduced to a lot of this work as I started to meditate. It was like I got this message that a shaman would come into my life. And I was like, I don't know what a shaman even is. I don't know what this means. And then a week later, my friend Teen, she's like, I have to introduce you to the shaman. Like, she's so cool. Her name's Sam, blah, blah, blah. Things like that really make you kind of a believer. It's like, I'm the type of person who has to experience it, not just see it. Like, I have to be the experiencer of this situation in order to believe it. And so the universe, God, spirit, source, whatever your language is, that path unfolded as I kept stepping. And to that point, I went to 6 doctors, including a heart doctor, for my anxiety. No diagnosis of panic attacks. It was actually me reading a book and I was like, oh my gosh, I have the same exact symptoms as this character. And then I was like, well, I heard meditation helps. And so I started meditating. And that was really me just taking control because modern medicine had failed me in that way. I didn't have a diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And so a couple of months after meditation, my panic attacks went away.
Wow. Wow. I just got goosebumps because I hear so much about people going to modern medicine, but they're not getting the relief or the result that they want. And they do turn to holistic wellness or whatnot to cure themselves. And I guess I wanted to ask you, now that you've experienced this, do you feel that when it comes to things that are not surgically related, right? Like when it comes to panic attacks or depression or anxiety, do you feel like these are things that are better taken care of at the roots? I just want your opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone needs to do what they need to do in order to feel better. Sometimes there's such a chemical imbalance in a body that it requires medicine to get you to a point where you can then self-explore and say, like, well, where are the roots here? For me, that wasn't the case. I mean, I'd suffered a lot of PTSD and trauma in my childhood. And so my curiosity naturally kind of was like, okay, well, why does meditation work? Why is this working? Or why does journaling work? And my whole life's practice at this point has been answering those questions, answering those whys. And there's scientific evidence to support all of these whys, which is always what I'm looking for. Having a spiritual understanding is one part of it. And I'm like, okay, but like what else? Because I want the concrete evidence. I want the concrete support data to support why this works. And I'm naturally drawn to science. I love science. So combining those two things was natural for me. But for somebody else who's maybe going through this at this time, try both. Try coupling them together. Obviously, you know, I'm not a doctor, go to a doctor, see a doctor, you know, do all of these things. And if you feel that call to explore, there is going to be deeper level roots. And I do believe in epigenetics. I do believe that we do carry ancestral trauma in our DNA. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we can heal that because our cells are regenerating all the time and that our thoughts are literally informing our cells. So that's where I would go with it.
Yeah, I completely 100% agree with you. And this actually reminds me of someone that asked me this question, which is, what kind of advice would you give someone that maybe is going through this work right now and they're coming across their shadows and it's really frightening for them and they want to keep going, but they also feel like it's something that they need to do? Like, what kind of advice can you give someone in the beginning of that journey?
Yeah, our shadows are uncomfortable. So if it's uncomfortable, then it's working. If it's uncomfortable, then it's exactly where you need to be. And it's okay, because once you get through that, once you really sit with that shadow, our emotions don't have to be a threat. That's what you learn when you face your shadows. Your emotional being is your biggest power. It's your greatest power that you have, and you can wield it, but we're not taught to do that. And so you have to teach yourself to do that at this point, at this juncture. And that's a whole other journey to like iron out, you know, but that's the advice that I would give is to sit in it. It's okay to be uncomfortable. The uncomfortability isn't going to kill you, right? Like that's not what it's going to do. Eventually you're going to move through it and it's going to be something that you've created tools in your tool belt to then use for the next level, stage, layer, whatever you want to call it. And get support. Get support. If it's a friend, if it's a coach, if it's a program, if it's a group, a circle that you join every month, there's so many out there, especially after COVID. I feel like there's so many places out there that are supportive of you getting what you need. So find one. If you can't find one, then there's also like therapy. If you have the, you know, I know it's a privilege to have therapists, but there's so many ways that you can get support. So find one that works for you.
And speaking of support, for those of you guys that are listening, Jenna actually has, I believe you said, a Patreon account or just content and just helping you guide through whether it's trauma or whether it's anxiety or whatever the shadow that you're going through. She provides that content. And I wanted to ask you, because I know that you're also, you know, an expert when it comes to abundance and like wealth consciousness as well. So is there like a ritual that you can share with us that they can just take away from now and then they can check out your Patreon and see what else they can take from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we dive into wealth and prosperity and abundance, it's all tied back to your own self-worth and healing your self-worth. So a practice that has been really, really important in healing my own self-worth is receiving. So anytime you receive something, sit in how uncomfortable that is. And you can finally get into the joy of receiving. So if somebody gives you a gift, like just catch yourself. It's these little things that make a huge difference over time. Catch yourself of saying like, oh no, I can't take your money for this. Or when somebody's like, oh, let me pay you back for that. And you're like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Just say like, okay, thank you. So it's like those little things has had the biggest impact. And then affirming every day, I am worthy to receive. It's something I wake up and say. And if you can incorporate it in your workout, when you're like doing push-ups, and it's like, instead of counting like 15, say like, I'm worthy to receive. I'm worthy to receive. I know it sounds so weird, but like the movement and the motion and the effort and the energy that you're bringing out into that affirmation is critical to changing your body, because you're already shuffling around your energy when you're moving. And so incorporating something new into that will change the game. I promise.
I love that you said that when it comes to working out, because obviously I've been working out as well every day, and I never put that two together, right? Like saying these affirmations while I'm working out. I normally listen to music, but you know what? I'm actually going to take your advice tomorrow, and when
try it.
I'm going to try it out. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Jenna, you said so much about your story with anxiety and how it has helped you when it comes to healing. If you don't mind, I actually really want to take off this mask and dive deeper with you and kind of look at some of the maybe limiting beliefs that you may have had before you got to where you are today. And I hope you don't mind sharing that with our listeners, because I think
no, not at all. Happy to dive deep.
So what was one of the most pressing limiting belief that you had that maybe stopped you for a long time from getting where you are today?
I'm not enough. I'm never enough. I'm worthless. I don't belong here. And I'm unlovable.
Wow. Okay.
Super easy. I've got this on lock because I know it so well. This is an old friend. Old shadow friend.
Yeah. So can you share with us, obviously, like all of us have felt feelings of like, I'm not enough, but there must be something that has happened in your life as a child or something like that has created that feeling of being unlovable. Do you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, totally. Well, so we have 5 emotional needs at any given moment. And the first is feeling like you belong, feeling loved, feeling safe, feeling like you're heard, and feeling like you're seen. So any experience you have that does not fulfill one of those 5 needs is going to create a story, a neural pathway inside your head of receiving or not receiving that emotional need. So there's so many stories of I'm not worthy, right? Like when my mom didn't take me to the grocery store and she's like, I just want to get my groceries. Adult Jenna says, yeah, don't know. I totally get it. I would want a 5-year-old kid throwing, Cocoa Puffs for the 10th time into my basket, right? I work 12 hours a day. I need space. But childhood Jenna had a feeling about that, right? She said, oh, mom doesn't love me. I'm a burden. I don't belong. And so we have to give space for that inner child who had that story and then rewrite it. And that's how we create a new neural pathway. So that, coupled with my religious upbringing, and honestly, no shade to religion, no shade at all. Like if it works for you, fantastic. It doesn't work for me. And I grew up Catholic, and in church, every single time I was in church, every Sunday, Lord, I'm not worthy to receive you. Only say the word and I shall be healed. Right. Well, when you say that as a child, especially between the ages of 5 to 10, when you're developing, you develop this feeling that you're not worthy to receive. Right. I'm not worthy to receive this all loving God. Like I'm not worthy. Right. And so that was one that I had to rewrite. And that's why I use that affirmation. I'm worthy to receive. There's so many, but I would say those are like big ones.
I mean, I love this because this is something that everyone can relate to. I mean, especially people that have grown up in a religious institution. I didn't grow up specifically religious, but I grew up in a culture that told me, be humble. You can't sell, right? Like these are things that my dad would say to me. So, when I started my own business, 100%, I totally agree. I was just like, who am I to ask someone to give me their money, right? So
yes,
I love that you mentioned those examples because these are things that people can relate to. And so when was it that you had this personal breakthrough where you are enough?
Yeah, it was last year, actually. I was working with Sand, a shamanic practitioner, and I was working with my shadows And specifically, my whole focus in that 10-week session, that deep dive, was to heal my unworthiness and to heal my self-worth. And coming through that, the realization that worth is a human concept really hit home for me. Like, there is nobody in the sky who's deeming me worthy or not. I don't believe that. And so then I was like, well, who benefits off of me feeling unworthy? Well, a lot of people benefit off of me feeling unworthy. There's a lot of people that benefit off of me feeling unworthy so that I keep myself small so that they can continue to grow. And then I got mad. And then my anger, my sacred rage really took hold and really burned through the rest of those old stories because it was man-made. It was made up. It was fake. It wasn't real. And then that's really where I changed dramatically.
Okay. You just said something that I have never heard before. And again, this is so amazing, by the way. I'm like really soaking everything that you're saying. You said that like there are people that benefit from you staying small. Can you explain that to people? And like, let's dive deeper into that because I want to know more about that.
I have to give my best friend credit for this, Katie. She said this in a workshop. She asked them like, who benefits off of our bodies? And then I was like, well, who benefits off of all of my thoughts at this point? Like, who benefits off of this limiting belief or whatever?
Yeah.
And so I just took it a level deeper, the next level to that. But who benefits off of you feeling unworthy? What institutions, what people in your life, who benefits off of you staying small? It's a tactic that bullies use all the time, right? It's a bully tactic. They bully you. Oh, you have body hair, or like, oh, you like look like a man or whatever. Like all these things that people used to say to me all the time as a child. And they point out something and then make me think I was flawed to deflect the pain that they were feeling inside so that they could feel bigger than me. And it's the same exact thing with worthiness. It's the same thing. And it's, I think, deeply, deeply rooted in white supremacy. I think it's deeply rooted in a lot of things that need changing. Mm-hmm. Colonization, a lot of issues. I mean, it goes high up, I think.
Right. And, you know, obviously we're in this position where we work with what we have, and obviously we're trying to change as much as we can. So for someone that feels maybe really small at this very moment and that's listening and they have this heart to make a big change and to really evolve with the world, what are some advice that you can give them to help them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just know if you're feeling that way, we feel things so that we can heal through them. No feeling inside your body is there to hold you hostage. It's there to set you free. And I think that shift is the first step. It's a red flag. It's an indication of where you get to heal. Mm-hmm. And so if you're feeling really, really small, that's okay. I still have my moments all the time. We all have these moments. Something my guides showed me a long time ago was this football field. And everyone is on this football field, but they all have their own like reality glasses on. And so it gives us this illusion that people are higher above us or lower below us. But if we take off the glasses, like we're all sitting on the same field. And that visualization helped me so much in those times when I felt so small, because I was like, I just have to take these glasses off and see that this is just another person, you know, and they have their own hurts, their own pain, their own story. And there is no one that is greater than another, no matter how much you've accomplished, no matter how little you think you've accomplished, no matter if you just wake up and exist that day or you know, change the world, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Your existence here is enough.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. And I love that analogy. I never heard of it, which I love. I love anything that I haven't heard, right? Because
me too.
More to learn, basically. But it's something I feel like, especially with social media, I have this thing with social media where I love social media, and there's moments where I see my clients struggling with social media because there's that comparison trap where they feel like, oh my gosh, this person has more followers than me, or this person has more likes than me. And we kind of get into this habitual, cycle of like negative self-talk. And so I love that you say that, because we tend to forget that, especially when we go onto social media,
100%. And to that point, they also benefit off of us not getting that dopamine hit and then posting more, being more on the app, consuming more to get that chemical reaction, because it is literally designed like a drug. It's literally designed to do the same thing. Right. So there's a lot of psychology there that I invite everyone to look into. It's really fascinating and kind of scary, but like fascinating too.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I really encourage people to not always take things as face value, right? Like, I'm sure you agree with that. Being in this space for some time, which actually brings me to one of my last questions, which is, I know that you're creating a lot of good stuff for people. What are you most excited about for this year? What projects are you working on?
So many things. So I have a chapter in a book coming out. I'm co-authoring a book for the Rising Sisterhood, and it dives deeply into my story, things I didn't share here, but really dives deep into the heart of the trauma and how I've moved through that limiting belief of worthiness specifically. So that will be coming out in October-ish. I'm also working on another nonfiction, and I can't say much about it, but I can say that I'm really, really excited about it. And we actually touched on a lot of it in here. So I'll drop that Easter egg here exclusively. And so that nonfiction I'm working on. I'm also working on an Oracle deck, and I'm shapeshifting the Patreon. I found out that I love sending mail. It's like my favorite thing. And so I wanted to find a way to send more mail to my Patreon people. And so we're shapeshifting from a lot of it being digital content to tangible content that they'll actually receive in the mail every month. So that'll get started probably after I move. So I would say September, start looking out for that. Basically, you're going to get like a little subscription box every month, each tier.
Oh, that's so exciting. I mean, everything that you're saying is just up my alley, and I'm sure everyone that's listening is their alley too. And congratulations on the move. I saw on Instagram that you were moving somewhere, or like you got a new place.
Yes. Okay, so funny story. Speaking of manifestation, we bought our house last year, like pretty much this time last year. We closed on July 1st. And 3 weeks later, there was this like really big fire, and there was an evacuation. We were like, did we just buy a house that's going to burn down? It didn't. Knock on wood, thank goodness. But we've been fixing it up ever since. And so now we're finally able to move in. I have become far more handy than I ever thought I was capable of being. And so we have an account. It's just like a little passion project of mine, like sharing the fun finds I have on Craigslist, or, how we built our shiplap wall, or all those fun things. So we share that there too.
Is it on YouTube?
It's not. It's not on YouTube. It's on Instagram. I should make a YouTube though. I have all these videos that I haven't posted yet of like Chris telling you how to change a toilet. Like, who knew, like I didn't know how to change a toilet. Or like this one specifically is how to organize a small bathroom space to utilize as much storage, because I could not find anything on that. Yeah. So maybe I will add it to YouTube. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely.
It's called Redwood House.
And how can people stay in touch with you? Because you just listed so many wonderful things. I know. And people are like, wait, where can I get this? You know what I mean? So where do you hang out? Where can people find you?
Yes, that's why I call myself a mystic and creator, because I'm like, you know what? It's just like all encompassing. But you can find me on Instagram. It's the best place to connect with me. It's Jenna dot, like a little period, and then Monaco, like the country, but no affiliation, unfortunately, because Monaco is super great and rich and cool. Just the last name. Yeah, that's the best place to find me. And then you can also go to www.jennamonaco.com and find all that good stuff there too.
Well, awesome. Well, you guys heard it. Definitely check out Jenna and all of her goodies. I'm so excited for your Oracle deck. I have probably 50. I'm obsessed. So I'm sure I'm going to add yours to my collection. I'm really excited for all of the projects that you have going on. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, and just your experience, right? Like your breakthroughs on the show with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And thank you to the listeners for being open.